Hola. Welcome back to the voice box. I'm Sinakho.
And I'm Mbau, Spendula Bandwana.
Spendula Bandwana.
Yeah. Only for this week.
Only for this week.
Yeah,
Okay, it's Spendula. Instagram Spendula. Hashtag 007 2.0. Today we have two guests with us. But this time we have males.
I put us.
For the first time.
That thing is bandwana. Does it always imply bandwana?
No, not necessarily. No.
That's always what I think.
No.
I used to think it was ex bandwana. In fact, in Swim.
There was
Bandui. What do you say, bandwana?
Are you not embarrassed, Buti? Are you not embarrassed?
Don't have to be, man.
That's so embarrassing.
Look, what it in other forms means is, you know, when you come home as like about time minds and then you come back home as an uncle and you know abandwan.
They receive you well.
You understand?
Yeah, abandwana means it's a means.
You guys changed it and you made it what you thought expandwin is.
Okay, but besides that, besides all the clowning, we're here to talk about quite a serious topic.
Yeah.
The topic today is
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And we just felt like it makes sense to have men only, you know, just for us to like have this discussion. And like what Sinakho said, we're just here to just pick these guys' brains and man.
And so before we get into it, guys, please introduce yourselves. Like you've been talking, but they don't know who you are.
I'm Lukhanyo. I hate having my brains picked.
Wow, okay. Okay.
What an introduction. My mind is not that exciting. Name is Yomelela, Mbau.
So let's start by first defining what is toxic masculinity.
Yeah, like what does it mean to you guys?
Men traits or these attributes that are attached to men that are then projected in a very violent and very harmful way to other people as way of proving your masculinity or your manhood. Cool. So that's my understanding of it, I'd say.
Sweet,
yeah.
Man. What does toxic masculinity mean to you?
Look, I can say it's like what I see it as in the simplest of terms. It's basically behavior amongst men. Also to do with women a lot that is said to be pro-masculine. Like we don't say the word of toxic. It's something that probably wasn't there 15 years ago. But I think it's something recent. It's a subconscious thing that we've got, like it's a norm. It's behavior that is harmful, yes, to men themselves as well as everyone else around them. Whether it's families, loved, whoever it is.
Sure.
It's a behavior that is harmful that we have no idea that it is.
But you mentioned that it's been normalized.
It's normal behavior, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Up until now.
The one thing that I noticed with what they both agreed on is how that is a social construct to begin with.
Yes.
And how you mentioned that, you know, if it's this thing of being masculine and strong and providing, but the question for me is, what if you're not strong? What if in Mhlambi you're not built in Mhlambi you don't have the genetics to be strong and to have muscle? What happens then? Are you then not seen as man enough?
So that's where it comes from.
Exactly.
That's how masculinity was defined traditionally. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
Not saying that it's cultural, but traditionally by society in general.
Hence the social construct.
Is this idea of men and how a man should be.
Sure.
Right? But the problem is that this comes with certain behaviors, and this does something to you internally as well, because you have so much expectation.
Sure,
you're expected to be this person. You're expected to provide. You're expected to be strong.
Right.
Growing up as a boy, you're told that boys don't cry. You don't show emotion.
Sure.
Obviously, that's gonna not only have harm onto other people down the line, but to yourself as well. So to me, toxic masculinity is not only behaviors that harm others, but harm to self as well, because you're harming yourself psychologically, emotionally. Exactly. And once you start to implode, then you start to explode. You're in the pool, that's my understanding. That's what I'd like to add.
You mentioned that, but I'd like to find out from the guys, what do you think are some of the mental challenges that a toxic individual who is masculine, by the way, what do you think are some of the challenges that toxic masculinity would invite on one's life?
There's a lot, man. Like
Violence.
one, it's
I like that. I like violence.
Like even mentally, you're gonna have a lot of, issues when it comes to your mental health. When it comes to that, you're gonna feel a lot of societal pressure because also toxic masculinity is not just limited to myself being toxic, but it's society as well. The pressure that's put on me to be a man, to be strong and to provide, that is put out by my mother, by my girlfriend, by whoever, by my sisters, by you understand? Now, that type of I'm not being that to myself, but they are. Do we define it that even? Is it still toxic masculinity? I think it's those types of things. Like you have those effects. Awulali trying to be a toxic male. Sadly, like you don't sleep trying to be muscular. Like just stupid example. They want to show. Because I'm actually acting you understand those types of things. Now when I'm first trying to be like alpha male, you die. Like it's this thing about you die. You understand? But again, there's differences to it. There's levels to it. There's too much of it. Sadly, maybe some things we're still in the process of learning because it took the previous generations how long before we got to a point of saying that boys don't cry is actually toxic because cry, dude, you fell. You understand? It's normal. It's cool. Your dad expecting you to play sports, be whatever, dude. It's fine. Don't do musicals. Like even those things. Like it's fine. Yeah, well, I think that's what was I saying? Yeah, I was saying something.
Blom, what do you think? What do you think are some of the mental challenges?
Mental challenges.
That's what we're saying.
I think also, of course it does eventually lead to depression, man. To one just being depressed, because at the same time you could be doing something because of an expectation, societal expectation, but you don't want to do it.
True.
You don't want to come out that way, but then because our society is just like forcing you into this toxic behavior, into this toxic way of being a man. But then on your own, you're just conflicted, and that does cause one to be depressed, mentally, just like mentally unstable, and such mental instability, man, leads to other very harmful, violent actions. What sort of, just trying to think of something immediate, man, like an immediate example that I can think of.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, let's say anything that you are being denied. Because even on being told to go play a sport, so you can do these things. You don't want to do it, but you're there, and and yeah, man. For me, it does. The most important thing it causes mental illness in as far as depression goes, man. Because it puts you in a very conflicted space of wanting to come out this way, but having society, especially at home first, that close to you, actually. Already pushing you into a certain box, into a certain corner, into a certain direction, not allowing you to fully express yourself, to explore your masculinity, to explore your femininity too. Because also because these things are also very much biological, right? Because we have both. We have femininity and masculinity in us. We have both in those,
definitely.
But because you're a man, then the idea is that man must always come out as muscular.
So you're more in touch with your paternity.
Yeah, exactly. More in touch with that. Sort of a band ran away from trying to make it cultural. But because our context in South Africa, right? And we are black, so very much attached to culture. I'm not denying not outside of culture, but for a moment I'm not denying what would be outside of our culture, let's say, and how it creates toxic masculinity, but also want us to look inside how there is in fact a lot of that toxic masculinity happening within inside. So there's also this idea that the culture rigid, right? But if you look at culture in essence or in its culture, is not supposed to be rigid.
Sure, definitely.
Culture is supposed to be anything but rigid, But in our African traditional culture, we have this thing about immediately.
You see, we just take
like immediately up and nothing else gonna go. So immediately nothing on you know. So this is how a man is. And in the thing also meaning that, of course, we already spoke about providing all these things, but you know, that shows ba izawukwazi uqina for umzi wayo, unkosikazi wayo, abantwana bayo, you know.
Sure.
So then you have all these, and then it's all about proving yourself and then to prove yourself is to be competitive. You need to be competitive, and if you're about competitive in masculinity, was about very violent. Was about violent, you know. So for me, I mean, it challenges it's mental challenges, man. Definitely depression, man. In so far as you have instances where people are just wanting to come out differently, but because of his surrounding, but just forces them into another direction,
and boxes them too.
So that box, and so people just end up being conflicted and caught up in that in that middle ground almost, which is not necessarily. I don't think it's a nice space to be in, man. I don't think it's a nice space to be in. And how do you challenge it? I don't necessarily think. I'm asking a question to myself and probably even trying it to everyone. Even how do we challenge it? Even I mean, people have been saying, "Man, they're supposed to start talking." Sure, I agree. We're supposed to be talking, and I think this initiative.
But why do you think men are so silent?
Why do you think men? So, because I mean, it's comfort, man. We're comfortable. No one hates being unsettled, out of their comfort zone. You know, entitlement, for instance. We are all entitled. But entitlement is also a form of very toxic masculinity, and I suppose to an extent, it's also a toxic femininity, right? But in this context of masculinity,
sure.
Because we're entitled, man, and we don't necessarily want to let go of what we're entitled to, you know. So when you take away what I'm entitled to, you're going to give me something that, in fact, you're going to leave me with nothing, you know. So it's also that state of not being comfortable again that I'm sure we don't want to be in, or that men don't want to be in. But also because of men fear toxic masculinity. That's another thing. That's why men are silent. I mean, to call out and better and
That's right.
So this is also the problem about the idea that men is supposed to protect, as if I'm not scared of what is coming to actually inflict danger on you. Myself. We're also silent because then we're also scared. This is the truth of the matter. Scared because we also have not been given the language as men.
You're a man.
Because that's what I was trying to say earlier on, what I was saying earlier on, this idea of issue of language. We're also then not given even a language, or at least a language was not made. There was no common language to speak about pain as a man, you know.
Yeah.
So there's not that language for you to speak about pain, to break the silence.
But I also think it's a thing of being uncomfortable, you know? Because once you identify a problem with someone, even when we engage in such conversations and you realize, oh shit, this is something that I do.
Sure.
That realization, and when people attack you, obviously you'll be defensive. You're already feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling exposed. Do you understand? So I think lots of people aren't willing to sort of take that step, because it's very, very uncomfortable if we're
and
being
also like it's been there so long, man. Like it's been there. It's part of our life. We grew up with it. I'm not gonna say it's not something that I've never experienced. It's part of us, because you walk into endlini ulila uvela phandle, they tell you you know, you go back,
especially that example.
Now tell me you don't do that to your little brother, because I wonder if it's even with like homosexual people. Like it's taken so long for them to get out, you know, not because they're scared of it, but because it's a toxic masculinity. But you can't do this. You can't hold your hand like this. You know, you can't
kiss by another man as a man. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you can't do as a toxic.
But I think.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say they also scared of being victims of toxic masculinity themselves, because one of the behaviors associated with toxic masculinity is homophobia. So now you're putting yourself in a whole nother world of trouble.
I was gonna touch on what you said, because you said that it's been happening for a very long time. But now my question is, because it's been normalized, does it mean that it's accepted?
No.
Because for me, it goes back to Lukhanyo that how do we challenge it? because he mentioned culture, right? He mentioned surroundings, he mentioned society. But this is that should not be stagnant, my friend. These are things that we create ourselves.
Exactly.
Culture, for example, it's a man-made thing. It was created by people for people.
Yeah.
And if it no longer serves the purpose of Yabandu, then why are we not changing it? Anyway, it's gonna, dude. This is the chat, right? Imagine mhlambi usazonga ingcibi okanye mhlambi abantu baselaleni yakho inkosi or whatever, and like you think you point out something, it's gonna, already it could take 100 years mhlambi, but the chat is that we should still have the conversation. We should challenge these things because they're no longer serving a purpose and just and I think that should be the chat.
And even that's a great chat, but the one thing that we really have in our power is making sure that from us on,
Okay.
yeah, but they in the back. I'm not
Sure,
gonna go.
definitely. Sure.
That's gonna take me a while. Anzubiza makhangathi ndoxelele mamela nini abantwana sanubafundisa uba mabafike benza amantombazana lento. They don't have to do that. Relax.
Yeah.
Now instead of going back and doing that, from here on, from us to whatever that comes, after us, we can make sure. I think it's education more than anything. And Lukhanyo made a great point of language. I understand that. Like not just like it's Xhosa and because I'm sure Khona Maciko Fundileyo that he put it very nice. But Tanzukwazi ubambela ekoneni xole awuthi this is toxic masculinity, what you're doing, you understand?
Sure.
It's okay for you to cry. Like, you don't have to, it's okay. You're not a sissy by doing this. It's cool.
Yeah.
But when I'm fair to it, I think we're going to need to educate each other. Yeah, understand? I think we're going to need to speak more.
I think I'm fair to, apart from just like educating each other, but calling each other out also.
Yes.
And I think that's really, really important.
But I find great problem in that as well.
So let me unpack what I was going to say in Fete, because my chat in Fete is that what we need to do in order for you to educate someone, actually you need to educate them, but Fete, but like saying Fete, the way and then educate them, but call them out so that they try to unlearn the way. And dog, and unlearning is difficult. I know that for myself. Because because of normalized behavior.
Especially again, this is something that you grow up like you're 5 years old.
Imagine you've known this for your entire life.
You can't cry.
Exactly. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's and I think.
Yeah, you think?
I think if it was just like, I think you just genuinely like calling each other out and also like igniting that sense of activism. Because let's say sometime you're gonna go and then have drinks, and then you do something, and then because you're tooling by and then I'm gonna do it elsewhere, and then I'm gonna someone else or Manami will see that as acceptable behavior of which I could can.
Exactly. Calling out sometimes also does come across as very isolated cases. They become very isolated in corners, which I'm not saying necessarily just because it's isolated, it's happening in corners, we mustn't do those things of calling out. But how do we do this thing at a much more collective and a much more bigger, impactful way, right? Like I'm thinking, the problem with our politics, they've got us to a point whereby we're like, fuck, no shit can come from politics.
Okay.
But this is the first and foremost where the responsibility is.
Okay.
In as much as even there's toxic masculinity that is happening and all those kind of things. But then who has power over everyone is politics as let's say as an entity.
Okay.
Right? Everything. People will say, do business, leave politics. Your business is going to regulate on political policies. Your whatever you else want to do is going to be regulated by political decisions,
Sure.
So my whole point is, of course I know not a lot of people like being in politics and all of that, but I think there's an attention that we must pay and a serious accountability that we must enforce towards the political entity.
Yeah.
Not, I won't say political parties, but no, I'm saying the whole shit as an entity.
True.
That's where we should make the call first, right? Or at least the major call should come from there, like, no, you're supposed to be doing something. How do we take care of it? I think there's much more of an institutional thing we should be doing. But the whole point I'm trying to say is, let's say you have an institution, you like hockey.
Yeah.
You start an academy. So that's an institution, right? So you start with those boys, but no, man. Boys and girls.
Okay.
No, man. this thing is not just going to be about talent and what. In fact, we're going to create human beings here. You know, we're going to create human beings. People are going to go back in society and actually have a positive impact. So how do we begin? So in educating, right? Education, I don't necessarily think that education just means us having a conversation, but education means having to put this thing into policy.
Sure,
you know,
definitely, yeah.
in these different kind of institutions. And the intentions of the institutions from the get-go must just we are in fact intending to create new human beings. Like we're spending most of our time here. Of course, people who are about making money don't give a fuck about this. Don't give a fuck about having to social ills. No, man, they're just about making money, none of that. But then if there's to be regulations that enforces them, right?
So what they're trying to do through that BB,
but then they're not following up. There's not enough. There's not political will.
People will always do it to the book. If Kota 5 women must be in executive positions,
it's gonna stick to that. Yeah.
Out of those women, 3 must be black. Just that, but it does not educate.
It's that willingness,
because France is still gonna get paid more than you, sitting in a whatever, in an associate position. Yeah, and again, they try on their side. Appreciate that, really, but it's not. It'll never be enough.
I don't think they're doing enough.
And there's when I want to go back to calling out. Yeah?
Okay, cool.
That's great. We must really do that. Appreciate it again. But I think a more educational approach to it.
Sure.
Yeah, I understand that would be even better. You understand? I think we spoke on
the drive. Educational approach. Expand on what you mean by education.
Yeah. Look, whatever means it is educational. Klambi calling out is actually it. But on a more with a more educational part of it, more than banditi. On social media, you know, like the other person that we spoke about, going on social media.
Sure.
You being this, you being that. Yeah. You are more likely to invoke an even more toxic, masculinity-related response. Because they're just going to fire back with the swear word and then block you, and then you're gone. And they're going to continue with that. And I'm going to come back to my buddies. Also,
calling out is very inconsistent. Can we also
inconsistent?
Very inconsistent.
That's what I'm saying.
I feel like the entire cancel culture talk.
The cancel culture is
messed up.
Now,
very inconsistent.
If we take the opportunity to educate each other just on those platforms, by as in fair to, okay, look, instead of doing this like this, it's okay to do this. And I'm to just put it out there as much as we can. We have ads 24/7. Can you have something that just, you know, slides past and says
this?
It's cool.
But
look, I'm checking how pop culture influences our behavior, because toxic masculinity is influenced by pop culture, actually. So think about if you make more songs, more movies, more whatever in pop culture, more adverts, like you say, that are actually pro Lendoza.
But do you not think that pop culture is a reflection of people's reality in some sense?
Definitely.
Which is
pop culture is also altered, man. Pop culture also comes on creativity, right? It happens a lot on creativity. But I do agree, yes, it's people's behaviors, what people are already doing.
Yeah.
But the fact that people want to change their behavior can also be shown through pop culture.
It's mostly through what we learn through pop culture. What they say in a rap song, I'm going to come back. I don't have Jay-Z money, but I'm going to come back and talk about on my side. You know? Whatever that makes me feel good. So if Jay-Z says, hey, Beyonce is the man here, you understand? Oh, we both, you know, there's no man, there's no woman here. We both, you know, we're both these people and we're just working at it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come back home and I'm going to say, hey, mama, you know, let's just be niggas. Let's just be whatever, you know, without roles.
When I'm on with it, my chat fit when it comes to like calling each other out or when you're educating each other, I've got genuinely nothing wrong with that. But I think being called out, like Sinakho said, it's gonna make you uncomfortable. And you want that uncomfort. You cannot be oppressive to someone and then you yourself as an oppressor, you're accountable. That's not okay, dog. Let's call each other out. It's like rape culture, for example. If Mklambi, you know, one of us is a rapist here, and then it's one of the topics we're gonna cover.
Can I cover that one? I'll even stand outside the car. Let's
say one of us
and this one fuels that one.
It does, dog.
This one fuels that one.
Very much related. But let's say one of us is a rapist here, and then because we have a good friendship going on, you know what? You want to protect our friendship more than the behavior itself. That's not okay. But my people are is how much what you're doing is not on fit. You know.
But also, you know, I mean, it's on rape now. Yeah, a lot of that slide because a lot of rape actions have actually been normalized as some kind of sexual endoser. inquiries or
sexual innuendo.
Innuendo.
Don't let me tell you, things gonna come. Don't let me.
It's a language.
It's sexual
back to the
innuendo.
basics.
What is that? See, like just trying to unpack the things.
It's like a
Yes,
sexual...
no. My next question to you guys is, okay, cool, we've unpacked everything, right? But how do we then migrate to a more healthier masculinity as a majid? Because I think that's really, really important. Because like a more masculinity that's not going to be toxic. You know what I mean?
I think all these things only come from
Willingness.
Being willing, man. Being willing. Like, a lot of shit is happening in our country because our government is not willing, for instance, to take care of it. Are we at an individual level as men willing, to come with a healthy masculinity,
But Doc, how can we not, how should we not?
Do we have to even be masculine? Can I just be
I think masculinity is
is
important, Fredjo. But for me, masculinity,
For men.
For men it is. There's
And
nothing...
for women?
Femininity would be then, important for them.
So femininity is attached to women and masculinity.
Not necessarily.
Can everyone
These
do what works for them?
What about...
Definitely, by all means,
I think
because that's where toxic comes in.
We don't need to cancel masculinity. We need to redefine it.
Definitely.
Cool.
100%.
Yeah. So the traditional idea of not showing emotion, being this strong Chuck Norris, we need to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Replace it with something that's more realistic.
Sure, definitely.
Because that ideal is just far-fetched, if
Which
we're
is-
honest.
Which is also created by society. I think I agree with what you're saying, that what works for men, I'm fit to go for it.
Just don't
Generally.
be toxic.
What if toxic?
Just let it not be toxic.
No,
Because what I'm running away from is too much definition again.
James, hear me out.
Because once you define it too much as well, then there's going to be a problem again.
That's where it is. There's nothing wrong with
again,
doing what you want. As
let
long
it
as
be
man it's not going to be
healthy.
harmful. Kwabanye bantu.
Naguwe. Mostly
Asinga nawe kaloku.
Benjamin.
Toxic masculinity is also self-harm,
Like,
dog.
because once
Come
once
on.
it harms you, it's gonna harm us eventually.
Exactly.
Because I
We're
think
cutting that.
Cutting words.
It's a learning space. I think it's a learning space.
Must feel uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
the whole idea of toxic is that you're sitting there on your own, you're being toxic, you're not really inflicting it on anyone, but it affects everyone else around
The
you.
moment you make a step, that's because was about toxic go
And then
and then
explode.
they try
Sure.
go to the
Like
next
yakho
person.
yongalili uzabulala wena, those
Abi
bottles
bola
of tears,
khona, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
gonna affect us in the end. So I think just let's encourage those healthy habits. Talk to someone,
And I also think another thing for you is that not for someone that is very in touch with their soft side. I've been finding healing in that shit.
Some people don't realize
I'm fit.
how
I'm
much healing.
very.
There's this idea that masculinity is not vulnerable. It's not weak. It doesn't cry. It doesn't show emotions. So I think for me there's also, of course there's a huge role we play first on our own as men. I hate the feminism that comes and want to just kill men and want to just put men aside, in as much as this is a man problem. It's a man problem in working together with women,
But women are tired, dog. Women
Yeah.
have been talking, and dog. It's like the same with us with racism.
Sure.
We got tired.
Sure.
We got violent.
It's a bit
and
different.
How?
It's a bit different, brother.
How?
You can't put me in the same
But
category as a white person.
how do you know how women feel? Fit?
No.
How do you know how women feel? Fit?
Women, dog. How's that different?
Look.
Why is it only a problem because we're oppressing women?
But you
No,
how
but
is
look,
it?
other than
I have
that,
a question.
Why is it not a problem because we're killing us?
I'm not. Look.
You know what? This is the same thing as Abelu was saying to us. Get over apartheid. This is exactly what you're saying. That no, but my friend, how many say kunini? No, how?
Coming. It's different, man. It's very so different, man. It's so
how's it different?
First of all, me and the black woman in the face of the world, we're nothing. Both nothing. She's like fucking black, and things to be stepped on.
Okay.
Me and the black woman, the world puts us on equal footing.
Okay.
There's no difference.
I don't agree. But okay, continue. It's fine.
Look, within black culture, then women are oppressed, like we were just talking about that, right? And women are such at a disadvantage, and was a point. I agree with that. But also, what fucking privilege is that culture giving me besides, okay, probably privileges, but nothing tangible, man. Nothing tangible I can really touch, nothing. Just give me privilege, just feel me chuffed about myself.
What about that entitlement that you were talking about?
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm coming to. That's what I'm coming to. Those are just things, man. It's nothing tangible. I'm just entitled over someone's body, and I'm not real.
Dog, that's not something small.
Wait, I feel entitled to someone's. I'm entitled to someone's body. It doesn't necessarily make their body mine. It doesn't necessarily make their body mine, man.
But your actions, dog, that entitlement perpetuates behavior which is problematic. Your actions. That's why people rape. That's why people molest children. They feel entitled. So
now you saying black women, to stop that, black women are not supposed to be working with black men to stop that pandemic.
That's not what I'm saying. That was not what I was saying. I was saying.
But look, the thing is, you're saying black women are tired. Women are tired. The whole time for the fact that the fact that they're tired means that when we're trying to solve the problem, we mustn't look to them.
No, I'm not
what
saying
do you
that
then mean when you
look
say
to
they're
them.
tired?
I'm saying do not blame them.
No, I wasn't blaming them.
No, you said you're tired of feminists who come out and attack.
I'm tired of feminists. I'm tired of feminism. I'm tired of feminism that goes out and says we don't want men here.
But if that's how they feel, then bro,
and it's not gonna work. Let's just be upfront. It's not gonna work. Look, it's not.
I don't agree with that.
Isn't that toxic on its own? Isn't that toxic?
Understand, right? Insofar as like we're women to deal with women's issues, insofar as reflecting amongst ourselves. But insofar as wanting to deal with the structure that perpetuates toxic masculinity, you think you're gonna do it alone as Lendoza? You're going to do it alone as women.
But do you know what the problem is? That women are doing it alone, dog. If you look at the numbers or the proportions of men who are willing...
That's why the structure is not being taken care of. That's why these things continue, because they're doing it alone.
Yes, because men aren't willing to get involved.
We don't want to partake in it.
Now, hence my point is then there has to be a working together that happens.
That's where the willingness comes from, when it should come from. Let's not allow ladies to go on their own pan and just like have this conversation.
Because we are being invited.
But then there are feminists that are saying they don't want you.
But does that take away from Blom, does that take away from the many that have been calling us out and have been like inviting into these spaces?
At the end of the day, it's a choice.
But then I speak then this whole thing. If then I speak because my whole point that I'm making is, look, in the similarity you're making to racism, I have so much Lendoza to it, because racism is so different, man. Because
I don't think it's different, because these two things are both about power, dog.
It's a power
it's a power thing, dog, and we've been feeling power over women. It's just, what's the term? Misogyny. That's what it is, in fact. And the same thing with white people.
You as a black man really have power over black women.
I do have power over women. Over women as a collective. As a collective, I do.
Power do you have?
As a collective,
what power do you have?
Let me make my statement.
What power do you have?
Lukhanyo said, he said something, we can't compare the two because you said something about Abelungu, and I said to you that no, you said white women have been what did you say, Raneno?
You just said you can't compare the two, really.
You can't compare the two, ne?
No,
you can. Only because when but feminists cannot be saying this also.
You don't gain anything tangible from
you do. Yeah, I don't gain anything tangible from.
Okay, continue.
Because my child is acting fair too, where now you are basically silencing the cries of our fathers.
No.
That's exactly what it is, Blom.
Man.
And also you can't tell them how to cry.
No, I wasn't doing that. Don't put words in my mouth.
You can't tell them how to cry. If that works for them, then that should be Londole. And I even made an example. You can't it's exactly the same thing as white people saying to us, guys, get over apartheid. It affected us, and let's cry in that is suitable for us.
About to get over apartheid, what does a black man have?
We have power over women.
What power? In what form does that power come? In what form does that power come? Before you say this, let's address this. In what form does this power come? I tell you, racism as a power gives abelungu umhlaba and the fucking control over us.
Cool. And just because we don't have anything tangible doesn't mean that we're not oppressing them.
Look,
I didn't say we're not oppressing, right? Hence we're even talking about toxic masculinity because it's a behavior in which we put out.
Okay.
Right? I'm not saying we are not oppressive, but I'm asking what form of power do we really have?
They really are. To look
at something tangible.
Look at an example of the phrase "boys will be boys."
Sure.
That's toxic masculinity.
You
are a white guy and I'm a black guy. We work all together in the office. Now, let's say we have a meeting in the morning at 8 a.m. I was watching the Barcelona match last night. I ran late. I come to you, hey boss, sorry man, I ran late. Is all of the match ran over. And you're like, the match. Don't worry about it. What Upenj is gonna say to her, to Sinakho, as another woman is, boys will be boys, man. It's fine as long as it's here. You understand?
Sure.
Now I'm given the concession now because you understand as a man. Had it been another situation whereby it was a woman that was there, it would not have been acceptable. Or should a woman have come with, I'm sorry man, I was on my periods. I had to go back home because
Sure.
You can't say that. You understand? It's just going to be just next time, just prepare well for it.
What you gain that women don't is freedom. You
get a lot of freedom from boys are boys. We get to leave work early to go and watch a match with the boss, whatever it is that works for boys.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, I think it was last night, and I was telling her that sometimes whenever I go and visit my parents, I'd come home at like 4 a.m. And she was saying that I could never do that. When she was saying that, no, that's only because you're a man. If you're a woman, there's no way about you'd come home at 4 a.m. and they actually allow that. And I was like, that's genuine chat. If my sister had done that, my 20-year-old baby sister would like leave home and then come back at 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm sure best believe best believe uzawukhutshwa because uvelaphi intombazana. Already lonto leyo uvelaphi intombazana. That's the power we have. It's a very patriarchal thing. Dog, it is power, Lukhanyo.
Even the things that women are taught when I'm fair to do as women actually fuel this toxic masculinity that we have. The fact that my sisters learned how to cook and I didn't at some point.
Sure.
That fuels the fact that I shouldn't cook. I'm a man. The fact that I go home and it's fair to like go indoor or I'm about to click it to indoor.
Sure.
That fuels it. Like I want to take it to the very little things before we look at it at a larger scale. Before you leave the house, the power that you gain. Open says before go take open no he gains that power. You understand? He knows but we indoor no matter what. As a girl, you can't do that. You know, you're not allowed to do some things.
It's messed up, but
it's a lot, man.
I think having more of these conversations, man, you genuinely like get to see the need for such conversations.
And then, like we said, it's a very layered conversation. There's lots of dimensions to it, and unfortunately, we only have one day.
We literally do.
So maybe we can continue, gents, if you're willing.
Sometime.
Not today. We need to calm down.
Quite heated. Calm down. But just before you close it off, I think one thing that we can always, leave the session with, to go out in the outside world is the things that we need to do when we get out there. Like we need to define what it is before we can go out and teach anyone what not to do.
I think redefining it would be a better thing, Malone.
Defining what toxic masculinity is. Yes, we need to know what that is so that we can know what not to do.
Okay,
I think that's a one thing that we can put out there for people to know. And then from there, I think as well as also when I say define the harm that it does to people around us as well as to ourselves. Men, the rates I'm sure for suicide are high because of toxic masculinity. You understand? Because of not fitting in norms that are set by society as well. I think if we can have that down packed, it would do a lot of good to everyone around us. It would take time to work it out, but it would certainly get worked out.
I think we're dealing more with a structural issue, man. For me, a much more systematic thing. I mean, Yomelela was giving very sort of small practical examples. but it gets even bigger and much more structural and systematic than that. And I'm like, I mean, I probably still, and I still think also it's very necessary. I mean, on this similarity that's made to racism, you know, or to how it is similar to racism. And I'm not necessarily saying it's not, you know, I'm not necessarily saying there aren't necessarily things that are similar or moments of intersecting between the lendos. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't necessarily think if we're to continue the conversation also then has to also, because I mean, more than it's like an individual behavior, you know, but it's, I mean, the society we keep on referring to is a structure, man. It's like
I understand, but in order for people to understand, you need to relate it to something to understand.
Yeah.
You have to have a point of reference.
Yeah.
What is another thing that's as close?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Think about the concessions that you get for being
the
a
only
man.
way.
Yeah.
And that evokes an emotion to you because you understand racism.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because you are at the point of being
The end receiving of it, yeah.
at the receiving end of the oppression. So people draw to that example to evoke that emotion, to get you thinking. That's all that people want. They want you to rethink what we think is normal.
I think the problem, I'm not disagreeing with this, but the problem of the point to racism makes it as if toxic masculinity brings us power as lendos, as black men, when it's destructive kwakuti. Whereas the racism brings white people all the fucking power.
Okay, no, I hear you.
All the fucking power to do anything. It doesn't, lendos, toxic masculinity does nothing to me, man, in so far as giving me power to change the world. It doesn't. But racism gives a white person everything to change the world, in fact.
I think what we can look at is the harm that they both do.
Exactly, dog.
Both
Exactly.
to yourself as well as to everyone
That's
around
where
you.
the
Especially
comparison
black
is
women now.
But then I do
I
agree.
think look at it that way. Don't look at it any other way.
Now the whole point was, right, because this comes from the point then of a kind of feminism. And I think we had this conversation, in fact, on the way in the car, a kind of feminism or feminists that are like, we don't want men, right? And understand, and I suppose it's a response to what you were doing. But I don't necessarily think, and I suppose that's anger, right? But I don't necessarily think at the point we're at, man, there's supposed to be safe spaces for women where women get together, find strength. I mean, there's a book, Misbehave. Whole point. The kind of safe space that they created was for women to just come and cry together. So that kind of safe space I understand. And this is what I was trying to say. That kind of safe space, women wanting to be alone in that space, I understand. Safe space, or a space then to say we want to tackle this thing. We want to deal with this thing. Of course, you can put out men who are not willing, put out men who are problematic, but you also can't avoid men who are problematic or who are posing problematic questions or who are coming with problematic notions, because spaces that are established should deal with the problems as opposed to also take the problematics that come with the people, because those people are supposed to learn and unlearn in that space. That's the most unfortunate thing.
Right, guys. So, that's it for today. It was quite an interesting conversation with some heated moments.
A lot left unsaid.
But to be continued one day. But in the meantime, just leave a comments below. Let us know what you think. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell notification so that you can.
Do you want to see that? Yeah, you guys go for it.
Come to my YouTube channel.
Go for it, guys. Go for it.
Nah, you're already here now. Come to me anymore.
But yeah, guys, thank you so much for continuing to show us some love, and do engage with us on our comments. And if there's anything specific that you guys would like us to cover, also do bring that on board. You guys already know our socials. It's Benji_Blom on Instagram, Benji_Blom on Twitter, and then it's Benji Blom on Facebook.
Sinakho_N on Instagram, Sinakho.N on Twitter. And Sinakho Nompunga on Facebook, but I wouldn't recommend you to me on Facebook.
But do reach out to us, and then recommend anything that you guys would like us to cover. But thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon.
Like and subscribe, guys.
Click here. Ready, boy. Click here.